Namato Ratana Tayasa. May I pay homage to Triple Gem, the Buddha, Dhamma and the Sangha. My respect goes to my parents and my teachers. Good evening, everyone. So today is 29th Wednesday, July 2020. This is Ajahn Sujan from Varapunya Meditation Center, Aberdeen, Scotland. So as usual, I'm here with you, to be with you in sharing some of the insights and some of the understanding, sometimes just a general and other times just focusing on the teachings of the Buddha and how to apply in our day-to-day life. Hi Manish, Margaret, Karina, Falada and everyone, those who are listening. And thank you everyone for joining on this online Dhamma talk and reflection. So as usual, today again I will be continuing on the series of our talks based on the Four Noble Truths, or based on this first discourse of the Buddha. Yesterday I have explained the basic idea or the general understanding of the Fourth Noble Truth, also known as the path, the Majjhima, or the middle path. But when you look at the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutra directly, the word Buddha used is Dukkha, nigrodha, gamini, patipada. Yeah? Dukkha, nigrodha, gamini, patipada. There are four words. Yeah? And I would like to explain these words in small details. Now, what does it mean? And patipada, the last one, patipada, basically in a general term means travel or traveling. Patipada. Yeah. Suppose someone is traveling from one place to another, in this Pali word means patipada. Yeah. So it's following the steps. And in the Dhamma, or in the teachings of the Buddha, patipada, he's talking about the practice, or our commitment to practice, commitment to do something. That's why there is a word called Dhammanu Dhamma Patipata, Buddhang Pujemi, yeah? Which means practicing in accordance with the teachings of the Buddha. By doing, I pay respect to the Buddha. And this is simply because there are two types of respects. One is respecting by giving materials, and another one is practicing in accordance with the guidance. And the Buddha praised the second one, practicing in accordance with the teachings, which will brings more fruit and will give us good guide. And I think this is like rather than feeding one meal a day, if we teach that person how to fish or how to cook food, then he will survive for the rest of his life. So something like that. So Buddha is encouraging people to practice in accordance with the teachings, and which will help them to survive or go on with their lives much, much better. So that's why this patipada, again, it's when we study Buddhism, there are three ways of studying. One is called pariyatti, which means the study by listening or study by reading books. So that's the first way of study and gaining the knowledge. And the second knowledge is patipada, or patipatti, which means practicing in accordance or walking on the path that has been said or led or got a knowledge about it, and working on that, committing oneself to work and also walking on the path to the liberation. So that's the second way of gaining knowledge, on the way of learning. And the third is called pativedha, which means the results out of the spiritual experience or experiential level of understanding. And that's again the further, which is the ultimate goal that Buddha is talking about. So that's why the word patipada has a very wide meanings, and it's very deep in terms of teachings of the Buddha. And the second word I would like to talk is the gamini, which is the second last word. Dukkha nigrodha gamini patipada. So the second word is the patipada, gamini, the second last word. And gamini here means the instrument or taking. Now it's instrument in a way that we are taking those principles as a tool, so we can work on that path, or working on that path to the liberation, or taking on board those factors. So with that, then we will be going into that realization. It's like when we are walking onto somewhere, we need a vehicle to go. So vehicle is simply there to support us. And what is the vehicle for, or what is the why do we have to have instrument? And that is nigrodha, means the cessation or the extinction. And what is the extinction? Is the dukkha, so the suffering. So that's how. So we are coming back from the last to the front. But in Pali, which is the believed the language the Buddha had spoken. In Pali language, it's coming from the front. It says Dukkha nigrodha gamini patipada. So now, when it's full term, basically the path that we are taking in order to eliminate or cease the suffering, and that path is the Eightfold Noble Path. So the translation, in English translation, it is translated as the Eightfold Noble Path. And eightfold because it has got the 8 factors. So that's how it's become an Eightfold Noble Path. And what is the path for? And the path is simply to find the truth. And the truth here is basically the end of the suffering, nothing more than that. And that's why Buddhism is not a religion in a sense that we normally know, but it is a path. And when we talk about the path, basically that means it's just a beginning, or it's just a map that we have to walk on to destination. And when there is a path, that means there is a destination too. And in this way, Buddhism become a way, or the path. And now, path is basically like a physical appearance of the roads, and the way is how do we walk onto that path for the realization. Yeah? So in this way, we understand that Buddhism is not religion per se, but it is a philosophy. And also it's not a philosophy in a sense that based on reasoning or finding the a debate or having giving reasons to believe in. So it's not a philosophy either, because in a philosophy it takes basically the knowledge, love of knowledge. Philosophy means the love of knowledge, and here it's not just the love of knowledge by trying to reasoning it or trying to find the reasons to believe in. So it's the conclusion in philosophy comes from a reasoning, whereas Buddhism is not by reasoning. It's basically by walking on that path, the path that is laid down by the Buddha, the path. And once we are walking on that path, then only we will be able to attain the ultimate goal. And the path is patipada, or this word I have mentioned, the path is is basically the way to be detached. So that's why when we talk about the meditation, particularly in a vipassana meditation, which means seeing things differently or seeing things distinctively, which hasn't got anything to do with the reasons. You cannot comprehend by reasoning on the vipassana meditation. All what you have to do is to work on that, diligently practice on it, and then you will be able to understand gradually one after another. If you are not practicing and you just went on reading the book on a vipassana meditation, then it's like just a menu at the restaurant. That is, you can have, but you haven't tested it and you haven't cooked how to cook it. It's just like a cooking menu that you have got, and a certain amount of a salt, certain amount of a heat, certain amount of the oil needed to put to cook something like that. It's a cookbook, but you haven't tried like that. Okay, so but whereas in a vipassana meditation is you have to work by yourself, you have to practice by yourself. And some of you, those who have practiced meditation, may have experienced already that when you read the books on a meditation, let's say the anapanasati breathing meditation, simply watching the breathing in and breathing out sounds very simple, but when you do it, practicing it, sitting and doing it at that very moment, just watching the breath for a couple of times is so hard. You may watch the breath 1 or 2 times and your mind is already gone somewhere, and then when your mind is gone somewhere again, you cannot comprehend it at all. You just carry it away with that, and sometimes misunderstanding of it too, practicing meditation. So in the practice of a meditation, particularly vipassana meditation, is you have to work on that. You have to put in practice. You have to try it out and do it. And only then you will be able to understand. And that's how you conclude. As a talking is easy, but virtually practicing is really difficult in the practice of a meditation. And particularly in the vipassana meditation, it's really hard, because in the vipassana meditation there is no reasoning involved, there is no debate involved. All involves is your personal direct experience, and that's experiential knowledge. And again, this experiential knowledge, and each individual experience differently at the first, initially, but later, once you've got the right idea, good attitude, then you will understand the true nature, rather than just conventional understanding or conventional truth. We will be able to comprehend in its ultimate sense, the ultimate truth. So that's why Buddhism is not philosophy either, but it's the patipada, the way, the path that we have to walk on, to realize, to find a way. When we look at in this way, in not just the Buddhism, but almost all the religions also teach us a way too. Like in a Chinese philosophy, Tao. Tao is also a way. And the way here in Chinese philosophy, the Lao Tzu's philosophy, concept of Tao, or there is a book called Physics of Tao in English, and beautiful work, beautiful book. And this concept of the Tao is basically beyond, and this way is transcending beyond the concept of a good and evil. There is no such things as good and no such things as bad. So you're simply transcending this concept of a good and a bad, and that is known as the Tao. So you basically, when you look at the picture, there is a yin and yang, white circle and then a black circle, but in a white there is a black, and then in a black there is a white. So it's basically, a Tao is transcending the concept of a good and a bad. And here in Buddhism, that's why it's also a way to transcend this good and a bad. That's why Eightfold Noble Path is translated as not as a good or a bad. It's translated as a right or a samma, which is beyond the good or kusala or akusala dhammas, right? Wholesome or unwholesome, but it's a right. It's called a right, a right attitude or right understanding, or samma ditthi, like that. And here, right is basically transcending this good and evil, and that's the path that the path that Buddha was talking about. Even when we look at the Christianity, I think if I am not wrong, Jesus said, he himself said that I am the way. I am the way. And what is the way for that? And that's simply the way to attain or going into the reunion with the so-called God. And how can we, or how can people attain this reunion with the God? And that's simply through Him. And through Him, here, He has given up His concept of Himself, but He has given His life for a whole humanity. That's how He became the way. And the way here simply transcends the concept of I, a concept of self. So Jesus was also a person who has transcended himself from this good and evil. And that's why when he was asked what is the way to the God, he simply said, I am the way. He didn't say that this is me or mine or anything, but he simply said, this is the way. So that's why I think the symbol of the cross is simply the cutting off the concept of the self. And every Christian should understand that concept of a crossing, or this cutting off the concept of own self. The very moment when you can overcome this concept of your own self, of this or that, then basically you are following the Jesus work. Then what he said, I am the way. So the way is there to attain. And every religion has got this way to attain something in a higher position, something which is known as ultimate. But here in Buddhism, we are just simply talking about not an individual, or we are not talking about in terms of the philosophies or physics, but it's a way that we can see it and we can apply in our day-to-day life, and without having any trouble to understand it. So that's why this the fourth noble truth become a so important part of the Buddha's teachings, and which combines of the ethical practice, also known as the moral values. In Pali it's called sila, and then the concentration, controlling faculties of our own mind, which is known as samadhi, and then panya, which is the wisdom factor. So the whole this Eightfold Noble Path been summarized into these three categories: this sila, samadhi, and panya, or the moral or ethical living, and the concentrated mind, and having a wisdom to live by, right? So these three become the path to the liberation, or to the emancipation that Buddha was talking about. That's why Buddha's teachings is simply a way to get the happiness, or the way itself, as I said yesterday, is a happiness. Once we have started walking on it, every step that we start walking, we are walking towards the happiness, not anywhere else. That's why there is a saying that every destination starts from every steps. So every destination come to closer each step that we take, and every steps becomes so valuable to reach the destination. But if we have just studied and there is a destination, but we never practice, or we never try to walk on that path, then it's just a philosophy or just a concept that doesn't make any make sense to us in our lives. So the practice of this Buddhism basically now comes under this Eightfold Noble Path, with this sila, samadhi, and panya as the base for the progress in the practice. And when we look at this Eightfold Noble Path, throughout the Buddha's dispensation for 45 years, and we believe that he taught 84,000 dhammas. The factors all basically sums into this Eightfold Noble Path, and he is simply explaining in details on these each sections and how it relates and how we can generate more wisdom on it. And understanding that is the core teachings of the Buddha, and that's how it's become the patipada. So it's become the way that we have to learn, and we have to walk on that path in order to understand. So this understanding is not from these books or reasoning or investigating, but it's from the experiential level of understanding, or in a short form known as the spiritual experience, which is beyond this good and a bad. And there is no good and there is no concept of a bad at all, but simply the way that leads to the liberation. So here, when we talk about the good and a bad, when we talk about the good, there is always a biasness of something can be good for someone, but others may not be see it as a good, which is similar to the bad things too. In a worldly living, some people may see things as a bad, but some may think it is not bad at all. It's a good things to do, which we can see nowadays on the news or on the social media, or even in our day-to-day life. We experience these things a lot. Sometimes we think that's good, but others may think it is not good, and they may see it as a bad. So that's why this good and a bad has always got this biasness, depending on each and individual's understanding or the community's explanation on how it perceives. Whereas once we have crossed this concept of a good and a bad by following this Eightfold Noble Path, or following the right path, Majjhima Patipada, then we simply transcend from this good and bads, like attainment of a Tao in Chinese philosophy, the Konghu's philosophy, and that's the way to attain in Buddhism too. And this way to attain in Buddhism is known as Eightfold Noble Path, which starts from Samma Ditti, and which is the right understanding, and Samma Sankappa, which is right thought, Samma Vacha, which is right speech, Samma Kammanta, right livelihood, Samma Vayama, Samma Kammanta, right action, Samma Vayama, right livelihood, and Samma Virya, that's a right effort, Samma Sati, right mindfulness, and Samma Samadhi, which is right concentration. So these are 8 factors. Although it seems 8 factors, but when one develops one factor, the whole other factors will come together to reinforce one factors to develop more. And these all 8 factors, in order to make sense or to apply in our day-to-day life, it's been divided into the 3 categories that I have mentioned: Sila, Samadhi, and Panya. So the Sila is a moral or ethical values, and Samadhi is a concentration and wisdom. The Panya is the wisdom. So the whole Buddha's teachings is based on these either the 3 factors, or in an enlarged version is 8 factors. Once we have understood this, then that's how we are following the path to the liberation. So I end here for tonight, and thank you everyone for listening, and we'll see you tomorrow on the same topic. We'll talk on that topic, continue. In a few minutes time we will have evening chanting and a guided meditation. You're most welcome to join with us. Until then, thank you and good night. May you all be happy, well and safe. May all be free from all the troubles, and may you all gain safe and happiness. May the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha bless you. And thank you. See you shortly.